Good morning and welcome to a different kind of format. We wanted to mix and match the format and keep you energetic, so I hope we can achieve that on the final morning. My name is Peter Evans, and it's my first talk show job. I've tried it at home, but struggle even to have my children take me seriously, so I hope you'll bear with me. So this is the think tank donor dialogue. I hope that we can have that dialogue, or even a heated debate. I hope we can push the boundaries. We're lucky to have people from both sides of the donor think tank divide, and also a policymaker. So I hope that we can bring out some real stories of influence and stories of success. And the focus of the session is on success, or as Hans just said in a previous session, on excellence. So can we go beyond success to excellence? And we'd like to define it and try and find a common framework that means something for everybody. What are we talking about when we talk about success? What are we talking about when we talk about excellence? Now, all of you in the audience are already successful. The TTI was a competitive process, and you're all winners. There are think tanks that aren't here, who tried to join us but couldn't. And there are think tanks that may try in phase 2. So I want to keep the energy up and focus on, well, what does really good performance, what does really good success, what does real excellence look like? And I hope we can draw on our own personal experiences and bring out examples to demonstrate that. Now, this session was trialed in Mysore in a talk show session that was led by Shekhar as host. And I must say he did a very good job, but I would point out it was early evening and we had a cocktail in hand. So I haven't got that benefit. I hope that you're all caffeined up and raring to go. So I hope we can keep the energy up. Now, in terms of you, the audience, I think it's fair to say that unlike many daytime talk shows, or the kind I watch when I'm at work, you're not exactly hostile. I think we're all believers in think tanks here. So I hope that we can be slightly challenging. We can push the boundaries and not assume that the whole world is convinced by the sort of think tank idea. I think we risk preaching to the converted. So I'd like to briefly model Trevor Manuel. I mean, he was challenging, and I'd like to keep up that challenge in terms of are think tanks doing all they could? Are we all high performers? Are we all fantastic? And also bear in mind that there are people in the world who don't believe in think tanks, and we must, at least pretend to put over arguments that would convince the skeptics or even the unbelievers. I won't ask you to put your hands up if you don't believe in think tanks, but I presume that there are very few of us here. So please, let's be challenging. And I think that one particular challenge is that we've talked about the long chain and the hard-to-see chain that leads from the kind of research that we do to the real improvements in people's lives. It's quite hard to trace causality, but we need to try and bring out those stories of relationship and near causality down that long chain to convince skeptics that not only should we invest in think tanks, but we should also invest in the capacity of think tanks that will do the research, that will influence the policy, that will, et cetera, et cetera. And we are competing in a space with direct funding of things like direct research on XYZ, on child mortality, or even children in schools. So there is a competition for resources. I think that's nearly it on my notes. So briefly on the format, we have 4 pre-prepared questions. And then we have some questions that we gathered from the audience in the question box yesterday. So we'll run fairly snappily through. I'll now turn to our guests, and I'll introduce them. So first of all, we have Goran Buldioski. As you probably know, Goran is the director of the Open Society Foundation's think tank fund. He's an expert in strategic planning and capacity building for NGOs and policy research, and in organization and project management, and has graduate degrees in public policy and organizational behavior from George Washington University. I think for me, the thing that I've been most impressed by is he's the only person who spoke in this room without a microphone, and everybody heard him. So I hope we'll have more of that stage presence today. Next, we have Jean Mensa, who's the executive director of the Institute of Economic Affairs in Ghana. And she's a barrister at law by profession and a thought leader on governance and democratic issues by reputation. And her niche is suggesting policy alternatives. So I think we'll push that one. And I think she's an example to us all in that she can ably demonstrate her impact through the policy results chain. So research and advocacy shaping policy documents and bills and into law. And just a few examples include Ghana's Presidential Transition Act of 2012 and the Political Parties Funding Bill. So she's a model to those of us trying to have policy influence. Then on my left, I have Louis Kasekende, who I'm sure that you all know is Deputy Governor of the Bank of Uganda and began his second term fairly recently. He joined the bank in 1986 and has been Director of Research and Policy and Deputy Governor. You probably all also know that between 2002 and 2004, he was seconded to the World Bank and has also served as Chief Economist at the African Development Bank. So we're very, very glad to have him with us. He's also a member of the International Advisory Group of the TTI, so he's a good friend of TTI, so welcome. And then on my immediate left is Shekhar Shah, who's been Director of NCAER in Delhi since May last year. And he's someone who's transitioned from donor to think tank. You may know that he spent, I think, over 2 decades at the World Bank in various positions in South Asia and elsewhere. He's got a PhD and an MA in economics from Columbia, and he's published in many fields: service delivery, governance, poverty, international trade. But I know him best as the lead author of the WDR 2004, Making Services Work for Poor People, which I think is a pretty seminal work on accountability. So welcome, Shekhar. And finally, I've left Stefan, my DFID colleague, until last. So Stefan Dercon is DFID's chief economist. He's responsible for programming and strategy and support for research and policy analysis. And he's taken the opposite route from Shekhar, I think. He's gone from thinking to donorship. So I'm very pleased to say that DFID still allows Stefan to think once a week, but only once a week. You probably know Stefan as a leading development economist. He was the lead academic for the Ethiopia program of the International Growth Center. He's been professor of development economics at Oxford University, and also between 2000 and 2002 was program director at the World Institute of Development Economics, or WIDER, leading the research on insurance against poverty. So I hope that you know our guests now.